You won't see a single cent of my money, you old witch. The door slammed with a force that shook the porch, a hollow final sound. My suitcase landed at my feet with a wet thud, splashing dirty water across my shoes. The tag from the bus ride still flapped in the wind. I stood there, the rain beginning to fall in thick, uncaring sheets. My umbrella already broken and twisting in my hands like something else that had outlived its use. I didn't move. I didn't speak. What would I have said inside? I could still hear music thumping through the walls, some celebratory pop song muffled by luxury and distance. Her laughter carried faintly. I was already gone in her mind, erased like an entry on a ledger. I bent to pick up my suitcase. The handle stuck wet leather slipping under my fingers. My knees cracked as I straightened up, breath hitching against the weight of what just happened. Cambria's porch light glared down like an interrogation lamp, cold and blinding. I turned my back to it. The sidewalk was slick, lined with bushes trimmed into perfect curves, a garden designed for photo shoots, not people. I stepped carefully, as if walking through someone else's dream. I didn't cry. The tears had been shed quietly over months, maybe years. This wasn't grief. This was air finally clearing after the fog. Halfway down the drive, the wind caught the broken edge of the umbrella and snapped it inside out. I let it go. Watched it tumble back toward her front gate, where a man in a golf cart looked up, confused by my presence, but unwilling to ask. I nodded at him and kept walking. By the time I reached the corner, the rain had soaked through my coat. I felt the damp spread across my back, slow and steady. Like the truth I hadn't wanted to admit, I was no longer welcome in the house I'd helped her build. She said I wouldn't see a cent. But what she never asked, what she never even thought to check, was whose name was printed on the ticket. It was a Thursday. Cambria had slept in again, and the boys were already dressed and half watching cartoons while I folded their laundry and packed their lunches. I still added the little notes I'd been writing since preschool, just a sticker and a heart, nothing fancy. They didn't look at them anymore, but I couldn't seem to stop. Cambria came downstairs in her robe phone, glued to her hand. She gave me a distracted nod, muttered something about a podcast and an upcoming branding shoot, then disappeared into the bathroom. I wiped peanut butter off the counter and checked the clock. I still had to run to the store for eggs. It was at the gas station right after the cashier told me they were out of milk that I saw the lottery display. The jackpot number was printed in red, 12 million. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the ache in my knees or the way the young couple in front of me laughed about house hunting. I pulled out a crumpled 5 and bought a ticket. At home, I stuck it on the fridge with the Virgin Mary magnet Cambria always said was tacky. I laughed to myself and whispered, "If this changes our lives, you'll finally get that house on the lake, old girl." Cambria saw me do it. She was leaning against the kitchen counter, hair wrapped in a towel, scrolling through her phone. I caught her glance as I pressed the magnet down. She didn't say anything, just nodded slowly and walked away. 3 days later, she burst through the door, wide-eyed and breathless. "We won," she shouted. "We actually won." She spun in circles, holding the kids' hands, screaming, 12 million. "Mom, we're rich." That night she disappeared. No warning, no goodbye. By the time the sun came up, her room was empty. The boys gone, and the only thing left on the fridge was the magnet alone on the metal door, like a joke that stopped being funny. I opened the cabinet, made a cup of chamomile, and sat at the kitchen table in silence, watching the blinking light on the microwave. Something told me to stay still, to listen, because something wasn't right. It was Doña Ruth, my neighbor across the street, who told me. She caught me dragging the trash bins out in my slippers, still half asleep. "Iris," she said gently, "I saw a moving truck outside your house, around 5 this morning." I blinked. "Cambria." She nodded. "White truck. No logo. 2 men loaded boxes. The kids were in pajamas. She didn't look back. I stood there gripping the bin handle, heart thudding in my chest. I hadn't heard a thing. No door, no voices, no goodbye. Back inside, the silence was unnatural. No cartoons, no toy cars rattling down the hallway, no tiny footsteps, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the weight of empty space. I checked the calendar on the wall. Milo's field trip was Friday. I'd already packed his lunchbox. I tried calling her. The number rang once and went to voicemail. I opened our shared online grocery account. Password changed. Same with the electricity and the school apps. Everything locked or rerouted. She hadn't just left, she had erased me from the systems of our life. On instinct, I opened Facebook. The first thing I saw was her post, written in bold pink font with glittering hearts. Finally free of emotional parasites. This new chapter is mine. No guilt, no baggage, no anchors. I stared at the words. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. People knew. Her friends flooded the comments with praise. You deserve it. Cut the toxicity rise, queen. There was a photo attached, Cambria, holding a glass of champagne in one hand, car keys in the other, standing in front of a granite countertop I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Manifestation is real. Watch me shine." And just like that, I understood. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't about winning or leaving. It was about rewriting the story so I no longer existed in it. I was the background noise, the faded figure in the old photos she would now crop out for cleaner lines. The betrayal wasn't in the theft of the ticket. It was in the audacity to discard me, like I was the price she had to pay for her happiness. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I walked to the drawer where I kept the school papers and clipped coupons. Then I opened a blank page from the notepad I used for grocery lists and wrote one line. Check the gas station. See if they have cameras. The gas station hadn't changed. Same blinking open sign, same cracked tile near the coffee machine, same tin bell over the door that jingled with a tired wheeze when I stepped inside. Mr. Ralston looked up from behind the counter. His face lit up with recognition. "Well, hey there, Ms. Delgado. Haven't seen you in a bit. You still drinking that ginger tea?" I nodded, fingers tight around the strap of my bag. "I have a strange question for you." He leaned in. "Shoot, I was here about 2 Thursdays ago. Bought bread eggs and a lottery ticket. Do you have cameras that still keep footage from then?" He tilted his head. "That the day it rained hard, you were in your gray coat." My breath caught. "Yes, that was the day. Yeah, I remember. You were behind that guy who dropped his change. You joked about needing luck." He tapped his temple. "I've got a good memory for regulars. Is there any way you could show me that footage?" He hesitated for only a second. Then he nodded slowly. "Let me check the system. I'll have to call my supervisor to pull it officially, but I'll make a note." The next morning he called. "I've got it," he said. "Clear as day. You at the counter handing over cash, him printing the ticket. Timestamp matches." He burned the clip onto a USB and slid it into a tiny envelope. When he handed it to me, his hand rested gently on mine. "You okay? I will be," I said. At home, I watched the clip 3 times. Each frame was ordinary. Me in my coat, paying in exact change, smiling faintly. The ticket a blink in my hand before going into my purse. That afternoon, I looked up local attorneys and found one with good reviews. Nathan Berg, small office, no fancy suits. I emailed first, then followed up with a phone call. He didn't sound surprised when I explained. Just calm. "Let's schedule something," he said. "Bring what you have. Let's start from the beginning." So I packed the footage, the receipt I'd found wedged behind a drawer, and the printout of her public post glittering in pink. And this time, I walked into the office not as her mother, but as the woman who bought the winning ticket. Nathan watched the footage twice, leaning forward in his chair, hands steepled. When it ended, He looked at the receipt in his hand, then at me. "You weren't kidding," he said. "This is clean. Dated time-stamped matches the surveillance. There's no ambiguity." I nodded. She saw me put it on the fridge. That same night, it disappeared. He sat back. "Have you told her you're taking action?" "No." "Good. Keep it that way." He picked up his phone, dialed a number, and identified himself to someone at the Arizona State Lottery Commission. He spoke in calm, clipped sentences, using words like discrepancy, claimant mismatch, and pending investigation. I sat quietly as he moved through the conversation, like he'd done this before. By the time he hung up, the room felt different, like something that had been spinning out of control had finally hit a wall. "They've put a hold on the payout," he said. "Funds are frozen. No one can access them until this is resolved." A breath I hadn't realized I was holding slipped out of me. "She's been spending," I said. "New SUV, a second phone, maybe even a down payment on a house." "She won't get far," he replied. "If she's accessed anything using the claim, the audit will catch it." That night, Cambria posted a photo of her in a white dress, standing in front of a real estate sign, champagne bottle in hand. The caption read, "When you stop waiting for permission, the world opens up." I said nothing, even when a friend tagged me beneath it, saying, "So happy for Cam. You raised a queen?" I didn't answer. Instead, I printed the image and added it to the growing file in my bag. I organized receipts, labeled folders, double-checked dates. I wasn't just collecting proof, I was learning the shape of the truth piece by quiet piece. She kept celebrating. I kept building. And each time she called me irrelevant or toxic or invisible, I wrote another note, tucked it in my folder, and sharpened the edge of my silence. Because she thought the silence meant I had nothing. But what I had was a name on a piece of paper, and soon it would speak louder than hers. Her captions got bolder as the weeks passed. "Cut the root so the tree can finally breathe. Not everyone who raised you wants you to rise. The worst chains are made of guilt." I didn't need to be named to know who she meant. Each quote was a slice sharpened for the audience she'd built. And they clapped back with hearts and flame emojis, calling her brave, enlightened, free. I watched quietly from the sidelines, heart-steady hands busy. One afternoon, I opened my phone to see a photo of Milo and Junie sitting cross-legged in a backyard I'd never seen, holding up popsicles and grinning wide. Cambria had written beneath it, "My real family finally safe and surrounded by love." I read it twice, not out of shock, but to make sure I saw it for what it was, a deliberate rewriting, not just of me, but of us, of everything we'd survived, every scraped knee I kissed, every fever I stayed up with, every time I gave her the bigger portion at dinner when the money ran out. Gone, all of it, replaced by spa days and weekend getaways, and filtered shots of my grandchildren in clothes I didn't buy, with smiles I didn't help shape. I didn't react online, didn't comment, didn't message. I opened a folder on my computer and labeled it Exhibit C, Image-Based Defamation. Each time she posted a thinly veiled attack, I captured it. Each photo, each quote, each smug declaration that she had broken free from a toxic cycle. Nathan taught me how to log metadata, how to verify timestamps, how to archive images beyond the reach of deletion. She posted a video one night, music swelling behind her voice, as she looked into the camera and said, "I was drowning in someone else's pain. Now I breathe my own air." I saved that one too, and then I printed them all, slid them into plastic sleeves arranged by date. There was something grounding about the weight of them. Not the words they were empty performative, but the proof. The undeniable evidence of her malice disguised as healing. She thought she was telling her truth, but I was building the record of mine. And while she built a world on likes and lies, I was preparing the one thing she never thought I'd have again, my voice. The room wasn't grand. No red curtains, no podiums framed by flags, just a square table, a few rows of chairs, and a quiet woman in a navy blazer named Ms. Loring. She greeted me at the door with a soft handshake and a file tucked under her arm. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Delgado," she said. "We'll keep this brief and dignified, as requested." Nathan sat beside me. His only advice had been simple: let the truth do the talking. A handful of local journalists sat in the second row, murmuring among themselves, glancing between me and the lottery officials, like they weren't sure who they were supposed to notice. When Ms. Loring stepped to the front, the room hushed. After a thorough investigation into the disputed claim surrounding the $12 million winning ticket issued on March 12th, she began. "The Arizona State Lottery has confirmed the rightful purchaser based on time-stamped surveillance, original purchase receipt, and matching identification." She opened the file. "The legitimate winner of the grand prize is Ms. Iris Delgado." A few pens scratched across notepads. No gasps, no applause. Just the quiet shifting of people realizing they'd misread the story. Ms. Loring gestured toward me. I stood slowly, my hands calm, even as my legs remembered every step that had led me here. I didn't prepare a speech. Didn't need one. I looked out at the room not for approval, but because I wanted to be seen. "I didn't come here for applause," I said, voice steady. "I came to reclaim my name." Then I sat down. Nathan didn't smile. He didn't need to. The papers in front of him said everything. The investigation was closed. The claim was verified. The payout was scheduled. And out there somewhere in a borrowed life built on lies, Cambria had no idea the ground was already shifting beneath her feet. By the time I walked out into the hallway, the sun had slipped between clouds. No cameras followed me. No microphones chased me. Just the sound of my own breath, slow and steady, as I walked back into a world that finally recognized what had always been mine. It didn't happen all at once. The fall was slow, like a rope slipping through fingers, friction first, then the burn, then the sting of an open palm with nothing left to hold. The foreclosure notice came first. I didn't see it directly, but someone tagged me in a news post about the mansion's listing suddenly being pulled and relisted as bank-owned. The comments spiraled quickly. Some defended her, most didn't. Then came the car. The gleaming SUV she'd posted about my manifestation on wheels was spotted on a tow truck outside a brunch spot. A woman in a floral dress filmed the whole thing and added it to her story with the caption, "When fake rich meets real debt." Her influencer. Circle the ones who toasted her freedom and rebirth quietly stopped commenting. A few unfollowed. Some blocked her completely. Her curated world, once so carefully lit and filtered, dulled overnight. And still, I said nothing. I spent my mornings organizing my files, closing out the last of the legal documents, and checking in with Nathan. I didn't stalk her profiles or chase her updates. I didn't need to. The truth had already done what I never could, cut through the noise. Then one evening, my phone lit up with a message from Milo. "When are you coming back?" Just 5 words. No punctuation, no explanation. And yet it undid me in a way her betrayal never could. I stared at the screen, fingers trembling slightly above the keyboard. I hadn't heard his voice in weeks. I hadn't seen his face except through the windows of her stories, blurred by filters and someone else's idea of happiness. I typed slowly. "Soon, my love." Then I pressed send and turned the phone face down, letting the silence settle back in. By morning, her profile had been wiped clean. No posts, no stories. Just a bio line that now read, "Taking time to heal." But I knew the difference between healing and hiding. And I knew she hadn't reached the part where she faced what she'd done. Not yet. Because before healing comes reckoning, and she hadn't knocked on that door, but she would. The knock came just after dusk. 3 sharp raps, impatient, familiar. I opened the door, and there she was. Cambria, no makeup, no jewelry, hair pulled back with a faded headband. Her coat didn't fit. The sleeves were too long borrowed. Her eyes, once always scanning for cameras, were bloodshot and fixed directly on me. "You ruined me," she spat. Her voice cracked at the edge, more raw than I'd ever heard it. I didn't flinch. I didn't open the door wider. "You ruined everything," she said again, louder. "You think this makes you noble? You humiliated me. You destroyed my life." I kept my hand on the doorknob. "I didn't destroy anything." "You did," she yelled. "You took it all back." I looked at her. Really looked. The girl I raised was still there, buried beneath the wreckage of her pride. But I also saw what she refused to see: a woman who had clawed her way into a fantasy only to find out she couldn't keep it. "I didn't take anything," I said softly. "You lost yourself long before you lost the money." She stood there, breathing heavy, waiting for me to break, to apologize, to invite her in. I didn't. I reached up and adjusted the scarf at my neck, then looked her in the eye one last time. "I hope you find your way back," I said. And I closed the door. Not with anger, not with punishment, with peace. The house isn't large, but it's enough. A porch that creaks when I step onto it. A garden that smells like rosemary and warm soil. A small bread oven in the corner of the kitchen where I've begun baking again, not for survival, but for joy. I kept less than half. The rest I donated to shelters and programs for women like me, those who gave everything and were left with nothing but silence. A grant now bears my mother's name. That felt right. Milo writes to me once a week. Real letters on lined paper, folded neatly and sealed with care. He tells me about school, about how Junie misses my pancakes, about the kitten they adopted named Whiskers. But in every letter, there's one line that stays the same. "Thank you for always telling the truth." I keep them in a drawer by the teacups. At night, I sit in the kitchen with a blanket over my lap and a mug of chamomile in my hands. The silence here doesn't ache. It soothes. No screens, no voices raised, just the rhythm of the wind brushing past the windows and the steady breath of a woman who learned to stop apologizing for being right. I didn't need her to say sorry. I didn't need anyone to cheer. All I ever wanted was to live without being erased. And now I do.